Kathy on the Couch, the EMDR podcast for everyday clinicians. I am your host, Kathy Couch. And this season we have a new co-host, Tony Parmenter. We're so excited to have Tony on our podcast. I am the owner of Rewired 360 and Willow Creek Counseling, where I provide EMDR and couples intensives and train therapists in the neurobiology of adaptive memory with EMDR therapy. My mission is to support clinicians with critical conversations and resources about EMDR, therapy, and business practices. In each episode, we will feature insightful conversations with experts in the field of EMDR therapy, from therapists to others who've personally undergone EMDR therapy or those who are just on their journey to building a thriving private practice. Welcome. If you enjoy the podcast, please give it a like in the App Store so we can continue promoting meaningful content for your EMDR experiences. We will move on and introduce our guest for today's episode. Okay, today we have a fun game show. It's the EMDR Limerick Challenge. Tony and I have been trying to spice it up this year with our game show. So I'm going to turn it over to Tony, and we're going to have a game show episode with a consultant and consultee in EMDR. And we're going to be doing this throughout the year. So it's going to be so fun. And make sure that you go to our show and you give us a 5-star rating so we can continue all of that. I know on Apple, you can do that in the store. And I think Tony and I are working on that Spotify. Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
Okay, so this is brand new for us. And last year, when I was on your podcast with my fly fishing friends, we decided to play a game at the end, Two Truths and a Lie. And so Kathy and I were talking about what do we want to do this year? Now that I'm helping, what are some fun things we could do? And I said, that was really fun when we played a game. What if we did games? And then we started talking about how CITs have been having kind of a big problem in the last year or two getting folks. There's just so many CITs out there. And at the same time, people that are looking for consultants and want to work with a CIT especially don't know who to find sometimes. There's sometimes too many people and sometimes hard to find the right fit. So we thought this would be a really fun way to do kind of matchmaking. Find a CIT or a consultant that's looking for folks and find a consultee that doesn't maybe have anybody or wants to find someone that's more in line with what they do. And then have it be a fun game show. I stole from my favorite game show, my favorite radio game show, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. I stole this idea today, which for them is the Listener Limerick Challenge. So I hope they don't get mad, but we're doing the EMDR Limerick Challenge. And the goal of this game is to guess the final word. And we'll see what kind of conversation results in that. I have a bunch of limericks lined up. Maybe we should take a moment to introduce our guests. What do you think, Kathy?
Yeah, I want to kind of just give a little bit of background. And so Renee and Tony and we said that we met because we were doing the pre-conference EMDRIA meeting, and then we met in person at the conference, and it's been super fun to reconnect. And then it's my first time meeting Sarah. And so we just really appreciate you being willing to join us. So I just am curious, could you give a little background to the listeners about maybe where you're at, geographically, the population you serve, and then where people can find you? Let's start with Sarah.
Absolutely. So I am Sarah LaFontaine. I'm an LMHC, licensed in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, South Carolina, and Florida. Big deep breath after naming all those states. And I've been a mental health therapist since 2013, specializing in trauma and complex trauma the whole time. So right now I work in private practice. My practice is called Rising Hope Counseling Services. It's completely virtual, and I work with high achievers, people who've experienced trauma and health anxiety that are just really wishing that they can have a confident, balanced life. So I do a lot of EMDR work and also incorporate polyvagal therapy, parts work, and interpersonal neurobiology into all of that. Folks can find me on my website at rising-hope.co. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, it is Sarah LaFontaine, LMHC, LPC. And on Instagram, it's Rising Hope Therapy. And in the next few months, I'm launching a mental health directory to help support people getting better access to care. So looking forward to that.
Great. So thank you. So Sarah, thank you. Sarah's here as our consultee guest. And I met Sarah just a few weeks ago for the first time after the Brown University shooting. I helped pull together some of the some of the response activities for trauma recovery there. And Sarah and I were in an assist group together. Actually, were we in 2 assist groups together or just one?
We were in one.
We were in one. And
Yep.
so, yeah, she's doing some really, really neat stuff. And especially with being helpful pulling together the resources for local trauma recovery stuff after that event. So
Yeah,
thanks. Thanks for coming, Sarah.
absolutely. Happy to be here.
Hey.
Hi, good morning. Hi, my name is Renée Seff. I am a licensed psychotherapist in New York and New Jersey. Sarah, I'm also an LMHC in New York, LPC in New Jersey. I'm in private practice. I also do supervision, and I recently opened on January 1st, I opened the Center for Inner Alchemy, my new baby, where I am providing continuing education that focuses on somatic therapy and ego state work. So our first training is coming up on the 15th, where we are going to be hosting for NBC CEs, which is very exciting. In terms of population, I work mostly with people who are looking for EMDR therapy, somatic therapy. I'm also spiritually integrated with my psychotherapy.
I love the name. I think that is so amazing. I think I love all of that. So I'm so thrilled that you were able to come and announce that. So that's super fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Renée has been my EMDR big sister
Yeah.
since we got trained together way back in the day. We sat next to each other in EMDR training, and we've been connected at the hip ever since, doing different
Yes.
things, circling
Yes.
around each other, it seems.
Yes, I affectionately call Tony my EMDR fairy godfather because he has been very helpful throughout the process with trainings and supervision and all of that stuff.
I just decided my new name for Tony is my emotional support Tony. I haven't shared that with you yet, Tony, but I was thinking about that after yesterday.
Oh, we're going to have to come up with a fee for that.
Sliding fee schedule, please.
Yeah, sliding scale. Yeah.
Okay, you want to start out on the game show?
Yeah. All right. So just to go over again, I will read I'll read a limerick one at a time, and maybe Kathy, if Kathy wants to, she can too. We might flip flop. And I'm going to get to the very last word, and I won't say it. And either one of you can say what you think that is. If you get it wrong, it's okay. Like, we're just going to see what kind of word you say. And there's a consultation point that I can give, but if we get into a different kind of conversation afterwards, that's okay. And if we run out of time, I've got about 7 of these. So I think we're going to be fine. Okay? Everyone
Okay.
good?
Let's go.
Yes, I'm excited.
Okay. All right. So this is the TikTok therapist, okay? Okay. An influencer claimed she could heal with EMDR taught through a reel. She said, tap left, right, you'll feel better tonight. Her credentials, not quite the real.
Deal.
Yeah.
Whoa, you got it. Okay.
I was like
So
mentally face palming as I heard that whole
Were you? Yeah. What's going on? What do we think about that? What do we think about appropriate EMDR training?
Yeah, that's
Just leave it at that. I don't know if anyone learns through TikTok, but what do we think about the ways that people learn EMDR right now? And just leave it at that, and we'll see where it
I
goes.
have just some ideas here of now that Dr. Shapiro is gone, there might be more of these little pop-ups. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Just think of the magnitude of the work that we do, right? And especially with the AIP model and just how that connects with the neurological structure of people's brains, right? That by triggering one point, by pulling on one string, you have this ripple effect across their lifetime with the memories and experiences that they've had. And how careful we really need to be with doing this kind of work and remembering that the people that come into the therapy space with us they need to be protected. They need to be cared for. That's why they come to therapy. And I think we need to hold ourselves to a high standard when working with them. While I totally support alternative learning methods in different ways, right? Everyone learns differently, audio, visual, all of that, experiential. I don't know if TikTok is quite the platform I
Yeah.
would want my EMDR therapist learning from.
Yeah. I have some mixed feelings about EMDRIA cornering the market. I don't like that there's someone cornering the market, but at the same time, we do need those high standards, and EMDRIA is the one that holds them. I mean, everyone knows that Pezzi's out there and they have their own certification program now. It was designed by someone who had completed weekends 1 and 2. When I got the first mailer years ago, it said this person is EMDR level 2 trained. And we know that just means they completed weekend 2. They might not even completed the hours to complete their training. And it's built off of that. But people go to Sedona, Arizona for a week and get 30 hours of this training. Who knows what it is? And then they go back home and they tell their clients that they do EMDR. And I don't know what kind of good or bad that does to their clients. Maybe in some cases it helps, but my sense is that it's not good care and there's no community supporting them. I saw this year, and I got blocked because I was commenting on their Facebook posts about it, and I got blocked from them. I was like, why isn't this EMDRIA accredited? How come you're not an EMDRIA trainer? And it was like a 15-hour EMDR certificate training by some psychologist that wasn't even licensed yet. And here's charging $500 for it, and laws in the United States allow for that. And there's no repercussion against therapists doing that and then doing EMDR, quote unquote, with their clients. Like that, people can do that stuff and get away with it. And the clients are the ones that pay the price if they don't heal or if they get worse. Yeah.
I think this has been a problem in terms of regulation in our field for a very long time. It's not just EMDR, right? It's also saying you're a couples counselor, saying you work with children. Just because you have experience with this population doesn't mean you have the training to do it. And so oftentimes I'll get people calling saying, do you do couples counseling? And I'm like, number one, no, I don't. But number two, just so you know, moving forward, you want someone who has training under their belt specifically in that area. Here are some of the buzzwords you're looking for, because anyone can say anything. To your point, Tony, I do think that regulations need to be a little tighter when it comes to what you specialize in. And EMDR, especially, like Sarah was saying, you're going really deep.
Mm-hmm.
You can really open something up for someone. And if you're not properly trained, and unfortunately, laymen don't know the difference between someone who's trained versus someone who's certified. And so they're
Right.
just looking for the buzzword EMDR.
Yeah, here's my question for you then, also Renee, and I think Sarah, you do parts work. I don't know if you have IFS in your background or not. I do parts work, I do ego state work. These are things that I've learned in my training throughout. I never tell people that I do IFS, even though some of the things I use are coming from that. But there's all these ways to learn IFS that are not through Dick Schwartz's school. And it's really hard to get in that. And it's really expensive to get in that. And there's people I know that do amazing IFS therapy that haven't gone that way. So what is different about EMDR than that? I think they're different. I think EMDR can damage people more than just doing parts work, just figuring it out. If you do it the wrong way, if you don't learn the right way, that's my opinion. But I'm just curious because that is something that happens.
Yeah. The difference I see because I don't have formal IFS training, my training in parts work is actually specifically in the context of integrating it with EMDR, which was really cool training to do. It really helped me to see the difference between the two, where the way parts work was framed to me is that you are essentially doing family therapy within yourself. Whereas with EMDR, you are directly addressing the nervous system, right? And this is my little polyvagal comes out at this point, but you're working with the brain's mechanisms for things. We are directly tapping into the nervous system in order to provoke a certain response, right? To put the client into a sympathetic state so that then they can hold this dual perspective of being present in the here and now and emotionally being back in that place. And you need certain safeguards around that versus my perspective on parts work, and other people's may be different, is that it is much more structured in terms of in the consciousness talking with these other parts of ourselves. And if the nervous system is activated, it's not through this touch. We are trying to provoke a response based on our understanding, but everyone's nervous system is different. Whereas with these other parts, we can easily have them step aside. It's not this
Yeah.
instinctive reaction, I think is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and parts will have their own nervous system responses because they're
Yes.
housed in different parts of the body. And IFS looks at it a certain way. Everyone's doing parts work. It doesn't matter. If they're doing CBT, you're still doing work on parts of you.
Mhm.
Those parts have developed ways to defend yourself or ways to grow close. It's all polyvagal. We've gotten into a great point. Both of you are IFS and polyvagal informed, so we can keep going this way. I also recognize that we got away from standards. So I don't know how you guys want to navigate this, but
Well, I have some things to say. Um, I think there is a risk for people not doing it correctly, that they're trained. I think we have Andrea, which I still need to kind of research how this was formulated, and the history still I need to kind of dive into. But I know that the EMDR Institute was formed by Dr. Shapiro, and it was her kind of baby. And so I think one of the critical thinking questions is, do we need to follow either the EMDRIA or the EMDR Institute's curriculum and guidelines, or what is the credibility of these other parties that are doing it? Can they do it with similar competency? I don't have an answer for that question, but I think that's something that we're going to need to be looking at. I like the foundation, the research base, the book, the model, the history aligned with those, with EMDRIA and the EMDR Institute. And so I think that this ongoing kind of competition in the market. Now, if you look at it from a market strategy, EMDRIA has about 17,500 members within the membership. If you look at the market strategy of PESI or something similar, they're in 183 countries with with millions of subscribers. So if you look at it from a business model, then that I could understand why they go that route. If you look at it from a business model from EMDRIA, the market is the membership. And so we're trying to grow the membership with basic training for them. And so now I only know this because I'm writing my basic training manual and I have to look at this. But I want to think about, if you look at the basic training, I think historically, and you'll hear this if you go back and look at our podcast with Jane McCampbell Stewart, which was the last podcast, she highlighted some things for me that she said people that were going through the basic training curriculum, there was no regulation. And now we are going through the basic training submission. They've transitioned it to a learning management system, and they're having a little bit more stringent, rigorous curriculum requirements rather than just writing a training like it was before. So it's a little bit harder for clinicians to just write a training and teach basic training. Maybe there's some limitations on the market that can be basic trainers. And that's just where I'm coming from. And so it's just been interesting to go through that process to see what lenses, what the reality is with trying to do the basic training. And then now you have to follow not just the content of like for psychotraumatology, for example, but you have to integrate the Gagne's 9 events of learning, and you have to be like a curriculum specialist, not just a content expert. And so it's just really different in the way they're going with training people in letting them break into the basic training market. And so I'm not quite sure where that leads them. I think there is some more, they're limiting maybe the newness of trainers because the standards are rigorous. And so we'll see what comes up. And I know they're going to change the consultant and the certification standards. I'm on a tangent, but that's going to be coming through this month. So we'll see.
by the time this podcast comes out, I'm sure we'll
Yeah.
know.
I think it's interesting, right? So, like, the whole theme of this podcast right now is the idea that there are so many CITs that can't find people to supervise, right? Because there are so many easier ways to say that you are EMDR trained without needing to actually go through the supervision or have all of those elements in place. So I think it's interesting, Kathy, that you brought up the business model piece. And all business is not always what's best for the client necessarily, or what's best to train the clinicians.
Yeah. I think another part of it is too, it's been really easy to become a CIT, but you have people that, might not be so serious about growing into the education part of that and just want to have a bigger letter after their name that sign up for free. And then there's another CIT. And so it makes it harder to find people And that makes it harder for people that want to charge. So many CITs that lots of people are offering services below what they need. And so it discourages people from continuing. There's a lot of people that would be great consultants that don't have a chance to get the training that they need to move along. And then I think it's really hard for people to find the right folks, which is kind of like what we're trying to do. You know, I was thinking about a couple of training places that I know that they have both for people that want to get certified and then continue growing into consultant. They allow them to be a CIT and then work with their basic training people. And then the people that come to their basic training, they have people to work with as they grow. It's like they match them together. So there's a couple places that I think of that do that, which that's actually kind of a nice idea. Like people don't have to try too hard, but it's not that common. Like most people are just Wild West trying to find the right fit.
And also, just to add to the IFS discussion, I'm currently in level 1 with IFSI. I actually finish at the end of this month. It's a very intense program. Prior to this, I advertised myself as someone who did ego state work and IFS/IFS because I was self-taught with a lot of this stuff. But there's the concept of breaking the personality up into these different parts. But there's also a protocol that the unburdening that they follow through with that can also get complicated if someone doesn't know what they're doing. And I think there's a big difference between working with someone's parts versus executing unburdening.
And that's the big thing about getting the right training is
Right.
being able to properly know how to do that. I've heard that like it lines up really well with phases too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have another limerick. So since I know that the two of you are integrative therapists, I have a few of these ones that I want to do, but I think I'll use this one. Okay. Since we're already talking about what the system is and what the system isn't. Okay. Are you ready? Okay.
Ready.
Here we go. A therapist rigid and firm refused any deviation or squirm. They said the script's way is the only pathway till their practice took quite the turn. What kind of turn?
Downward. Turn down.
You
Downward turn.
Downturn. The therapist was so rigid with EMDR that, oh no, their EMDR practice suffered. Why? I don't know. What do you think?
It's art and science.
Script deviation or staying with the script? Yeah, what do we do? It's always a big topic.
So this is the idea is that what I tell my consultees is it's okay to deviate if you know what you're deviating from. It's just making things up that sound good. And so when I went to my basic training, they were like, don't deviate. And so that was like in my brain, but also like we have a wealth of skills and knowledge. And I was in a DBT background and I'm like, yeah, but where do I put DBT in this? And it's in phase 2, but we just had to do the safe place in the container. But now I can kind of integrate those DBT skills and relaxing. I've seen the client for a long time and she said, I love EMDR, but also I feel like if we did an EMDR session and then we could have done some somatic work after our EMDR session just on body scanning and getting really into the body channel, that would have helped me a little bit more. And I'm like, okay, so we can do that kind of work. And that's an idea for the intensives too. At the end to do that channel, which is often ignored. There's some art in that, but also just making sure we remember like where it came from and it's like space.
Yeah. Yeah. The basic trainees that I work with get so fed up with reading the script. And by the end of their consultation, I'm like, okay, we wanted you to just get used to reading the script and doing it in this way. So you get used to it. Now take some bullet points for yourself. See how you can remember it and see how you stay to the flow, but start to integrate who you are as a therapist into that and the things you do. What from DBT that you do is a phase 2 thing or an interweave? Is it nervous system related? If it's grounding, why can't that be phase 2 or whatever? And like I always describe it to people kind of like how you learn to drive a car. You learn to drive a car by learning to follow all the rules so everyone stays safe. But then you learn how to flex and be the kind of driver that you are to get where you need to go. So yeah, so I'm that way too. Like, and it gets to a point with new EMDR therapists where they can feel that frustration and that growing edge. And if nothing is done with that, they're going to stop doing EMDR because EMDR is going to be boring to them. That's where I'm always at that point with people. I'm always trying to get them to be like, okay, what can you do now to tweak this and make it feel more authentic for you? Is it saying the words differently? Is it learning how to float back differently? As long as you're staying with the pathway and knowing where you are in the process, whatever you integrate, what does that mean? Yeah.
I love that metaphor, Tony, of driving, because that is so fantastic. The one I use with my clients is like more of a baking one. Like you have to understand each of the ingredients and what they do and how they interact with each other in order to then know how to break the rules when you need to, right? Of when you can add a little more of this or a little less of that to still make something that's delicious and beautiful.
And if you can remind yourself that you're not breaking the rules, you're just kind of
Mm,
integrating in. I think the big thing is always like, are you following fidelity? And in the EMDR description on the EMDRIA website, one of the points it says EMDR is an integrative psychotherapy. That's like right in there. And so what does that mean? Do we do it rigidly, or do we meld it with everything that we already do and make an art out of it?
And even in the basic text, it says that's what Dr. Shapiro said. This is an integrative therapy from all the things that I've learned in all my modalities. So even when she was designing it, she pulled from lots of different sources to create this, but also still staying within that model is important too.
Yeah.
When you think about the importance of attuning with the client, and I think that when you are so rigid with a script and you're like, boom, 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 sometimes it can really make the chemistry of the room challenging because you're not flowing with the client. So I think to you guys' points, yeah, learn the script, know the script, be familiar with it, but also start to exercise flowing out and seeing what other things are, playing with different ideas. All of these modalities came from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So get creative with the way that you use things and see what works. And every client is different. I think the creativity and the flexibility is very important.
I think when you're attuning to your client, you might realize that we're going to stop here and just do regulation for as long as we need. And that's a really long interweave. Maybe that's a really long interweave that lasts a month,
Right.
but I
mhm.
still have that umbrella of knowing where I am in the flow.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Not what am I supposed to do, but what do you need?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure all of us have had new clients come and tell us, I've had so many people say this word for word. So I'm sure all of you have had this at least one time. I had EMDR in the past and it didn't help. It was really bad. And so when I explore that with people, it's usually one of two things. It's either the person just jumped over phase two, didn't do any grounding, just tried to jump right in there and desensitize and like cut everything out. And of course, the person's protective parts jumped in and did their job and protected them and things didn't go well. Or they just were really rigid with the script and were not connecting with the client. Those are the two things. And so I think if you can do those two things differently, you're going to have a really good outcome.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kathy?
No, I agree. I think I've had people say, I tried EMDR, they waved their fingers on the first time and we went through a memory and it didn't work and I left feeling worse than I went in. And so that I think that closure, that kind of maybe this is more of Renee's area with the somatics. I'm just learning about that. I think that I'm going to be integrating more of the body channel, but I think it's really important. When you're new, you don't know what Tony just said. And so that's why we have consultation and training so we can be like, yeah, okay, that's normal. And I just tell people like, you're asking the right questions, you're where you need to be. And so I think those things are important.
I think one of the hard things is that you don't know what you don't know,
Mhm.
right? So, especially if you are newer to EMDR or newer to being a therapist and new to EMDR, it's hard to put into perspective where you are versus where other people are that are further along in terms of their experience and use of this. And I just wonder if there's a way to be able to help frame that for people, because I would hope, and I truly do believe that people are not coming into the field of therapy and doing this with clients because they have the intention of harming their clients, right? And so it's an unintentional harm that's happening, but it is still harm nonetheless. So how can we shine a light on that unintentionality, that accident, so to speak, so that we bring awareness to what that is like, and then we can eliminate that.
So I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think anyone's coming in looking to harm anyone. However, I do think, kind of to Kathy's earlier point, right? There's people who are in it for business. And there are people who just want to put on their profile that they do XYZ so that they can start charging out of pocket or get more clientele. And that is, I think, a bigger ethical issue that happens in our field. So, yes, I agree.
Okay, are we ready for another question?
I got one, and this might need to have a word bleeped out. Are we okay with that, Kathy?
Yeah, so we can just find a way we can take anything out that we need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a good one that's gonna go right along with the somatic and polyvagal theme that's showing up here today. Are people ready?
Yeah.
I wrote this one
Totally
thinking
ready.
I wrote this one thinking of Renee.
Oh.
Yeah.
And there's a curse word in it.
I know your sense of humor a little bit, you know.
How appropriate.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. A client was stuck in a loop. Her suds wouldn't budge from her group. I tried interweaves. She just couldn't leave. Turns out she just needed to.
Okay. I did not want to be the one to say it.
I
So
have young kids. That
I
word
didn't
is
realize
thrown
you
around
wrote
my
these,
house.
Tony.
I wrote them and I had some hope. Maybe I'll have you write them because of what you shared earlier. You know,
Yes,
so
yes,
good.
right.
So what do
yes,
we
yes.
think about that? You know,
Open?
what does that make us think about when it comes to stuck processing or maybe stuck other things, somatics, polyvagal? What do we think?
Stuck.
Anything.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about the importance of being diversified with your knowledge of different therapies. And when a client is stuck, this going back to this topic of using the scripts, right? When a client is stuck, knowing how to integrate potentially IFS work, something that or ego state work, something that they're using in the IFS training, which is kind of interesting for people who aren't comfortable in the body with the somatic work, is looking at it through a Gestalt lens, which for me personally is very new. And it's been really cool to use in practicum. But I guess my answer to that is it's important to have a variety of trainings to pull from when a client is experiencing some kind of stuckness.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I wonder, is asking, do you need to use the bathroom a form of interweave? I would say so. If they come back able to get back in their body and process what was there. And that's a polyvagal response, right? Being constipated. That's a dorsal vagal thing.
Digestive response too.
Mhm.
So it shows the
Right.
material in the digestive system is processing.
Yeah.
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 It's honestly one of the things that I love the most about interpersonal neurobiology, because it was developed by Dr. Dan Siegel, and
Hmm.
it's this framework of essentially whole person, whole life perspective to mental health, that in order to understand what the person is going through, we need to take everything into context, and that includes the physical. So it's neurobiological, but also sociological, anthropological. We're looking at gender roles. We're looking at the physical sense of how does the body physically manage these things, which is very much polyvagal. And that a lot of these things are gut based, which is why I specialize in trauma and health anxiety, because clients that hold a lot of trauma that benefit from a lot of this type of EMDR body work tend to also have a lot of health issues, because this is one of the ways that the subconscious is able to speak to us. We have this mind body separation of our physical self that operates on its own without our conscious awareness needing to do anything. I do not think, okay, heartbeat, heartbeat again, keep going, heart, keep beating. Right. And just like that, I also don't tell my gut to process. It does it on its own based on the cues. And if I'm not feeling safe, then my body's going to react appropriately. So we need some type of intermediary to happen. And maybe that is going to the bathroom before we start session.
Right. Yeah. Or in the middle, even.
Yeah.
Renee, do you have any thoughts? We love poop.
I'm excited to hear the next limerick.
Okay. All right. So this is a billing one. This is our last one for today. We'll do this one, and then I have something to follow up with regarding Sarah after before we end. Finish up. Okay.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go back and learn how to speak English a little bit better. So, okay. Folks ready? Okay. My client got better. Hooray. But insurance refused me my pay. They said, it seems odd. You just wave a small rod. We won't cover this woo-woo
Today.
today. All right.
Good job, Sarah.
Yeah. All right. When Renee and I were new, and probably when Kathy was new, there were still people saying like EMDR isn't covered by insurance, which I think is silly, because insurance just looks at one code and you just write your notes to substantiate that. And being an integrative therapist, you're going to be using something cognitive anyway that you could probably put in there. But the thing I have problems with is, actually, I think all of us, I don't know about you, Sarah, but I think, Renee and Kathy and me all do intensives. And that's the biggest question, is like, how do you support people that are using their insurance? And there's never a good answer.
Yeah.
Until, 2023, for a couple of years, I was billing Blue Cross, and Blue Cross was paying, but they got rid of all those codes. And so now we don't know what to do. That's the question. What do you guys think about that? Billing, anything you want to say about that? How do you work it out? How do you wish it would work?
I'm going to give a short summary because I could do a whole TED talk on the insurance industry with mental health. So, for context, my practice is fully private pay, but I have billed insurance before, and obviously I've worked for agencies and other places. I don't currently do intensives, but it does come up very frequently in EMDR fields. And oh gosh, I just have this deep, intense frustration with anyone trying to step in and prevent a client from receiving care that would truly benefit them,
Mm.
simply because the third party is concerned about their financials more than the client's actual needs.
My friend works at an agency, and they just told me that one of their clients has a brand new deductible this year that's only mental health. Their medical deductible is $3,000. Their mental health deductible is $6,000.
Oh my God.
So they're going to have to pay full price for all mental health care unless they go inpatient once. They go inpatient
I'm
once, then they meet the
gagging.
deductible. That's the way the
Yeah.
system is turning right now. It's very weird that I got a letter from Blue Cross Health Insurance as a customer last year, and encouraging me as a customer to use their free AI mental health
Platform.
therapists. I don't even know.
Yeah.
When at the same time they're reimbursing therapists for doing the work.
Oh
It was
Mhm.
wild.
Yeah. It makes me like it makes me feel so viscerally ill,
Uh-huh.
especially when we also hear so many things about how this impacts quality of care for so many different people, in terms of how they're underpaying providers and how that's causing more burnout in our field. And we have a mental health crisis that's going on. And it just makes it so incredibly difficult, on top of all of these pre-existing perceptions that people have about the mental health field, about how high we charge and things like that. And there's always this light bulb moment when I talk to people, because I break down my fee for them. If they're like, oh gosh, you charge insert number here. I'm like, well, yeah, because I don't work 40 billable hours a week. Like I maintain a smaller caseload. A lot of people in the mental health field do. So you think cut that in half, and that's essentially my hourly rate. But I also run a business, so I have to set money aside for all of my taxes and everything else. So I actually cut that number in half. So 25% of my hourly rate is actually what my take home pay is. And I had this a conversation with a client once, and I was like, and I think the number broke down. The example I gave her was $100 per session. And I said, do you think that I should get paid $25 an hour for the work that I do? And she's like, oh dear God, no. This is worth so much more than $25 an hour. I'm like, okay, so like, but that's actually what a lot of people are getting paid, or what people think we should pay, because you hear that based on that example, $100 a session, and you go, oh my gosh, that feels like a big number, but our field is different,
It's yeah, it's what brings in the money to pay for everything that the company does. So my breakdown is kind of similar. I divide it into thirds, and then that 1 hour is actually 2 hours, because if I bill insurance, I have to do all that work. I have to work with the denials. I have to, like, maybe people are contacting me between sessions. I have to plan on 2 hours. So to work a 40-hour week, that means 20 clients, and a third of that hourly rate is actually chopped up into two as my actual hourly rate. And yeah, I just had a conversation with a client about this, and they were upset about a no-show fee that I charged, actually my system charged automatically. And I don't like having these conversations with clients because it feels very rigid and cold. But I think people need to think about us not as rent a friend, but as a professional that I'm hiring to do a job. Like, I have hired this person to do this thing for me, and I've scheduled work for them. And I prioritize clients so much. I plan my whole week around the work that I schedule for them. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And we've not to mention the things that we're trained on outside of that to be able to do that for them in that hour session, which we have to be more effective too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are about at our time limit. We want to thank our guests. It's so exciting to have you here, and just make sure and follow them on their website.
So Renee is here as a CIT. Sarah is here as a consultee. If you guys want to work together, you guys can get in touch and figure that out. If this was just a nice meeting, you figure that out. No matter what, Sarah gets a consultation hour for being here. She gets credit. And Renee, also being here in the consultant role, hopefully if you need to count this for anything, you can. But Sarah, if you need anything regarding this, just reach out. Like, this counts for you.
Absolutely.
That's the prize for being here. And Renee and Sarah, thank you so much for showing up. What was this like for you?
This was so much fun. It was fantastic.
Thank you so much for joining us at another episode of Kathy on the Couch, the EMDR podcast for everyday clinicians. We hope today's conversation has inspired you, sparked new ideas, and offered practical tools you can bring into your own practice. Whether you're just starting out in the mental health field, a seasoned clinician, or someone just curious about the transformative power of EMDR, we're grateful to have you as a part of our great community. EMDR University is here to companion you alongside your EMDR career path from Rewired 360. The moment you complete your basic training, we offer comprehensive support and resources that guide you through every stage, from newly trained EMDR clinicians to EMDR certification, consultants in training, and even trainers. Our curriculum is designed to fill the gaps often found in the marketplace, providing advanced training and consultation and mentorship to you as you progress in your professional journey. Whether you're seeking foundational skills or advanced expertise, EMDR University is your partner in growth and excellence. So be sure to check out our show notes for a full list of courses, and don't forget to visit our swag store at rewired360.shop. Also, check out our show notes if you're interested in learning more about EMDR intensives or want to look at innovative tools like Dharma Doctor Tappers, and you'll find the links in our show notes. A quick disclaimer: the information shared on this podcast reflects the perspectives and experiences of our guests and hosts. It's not intended to substitute for professional consultation, supervision, or individual guidance. If you have questions about how to apply any of the concepts discussed, we encourage you to consult with your clinical supervisor, consultant, or your local supervision board. As always, follow research-based protocols and best practices in your work. We're here to walk alongside you as you deepen your understanding of EMDR. And until next time, keep connecting, learning, and keep rewiring for success. Take care. This is Kathy Couch. On behalf of Tony Parmenter and the entire team, thank you for being here with us on the couch, and we'll see you in the next episode.